Okay, good day everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today in our presentation on virtual reality in the classroom. We're going to do our best to make it as informative and entertaining as possible. We realize how busy everyone is, so we do truly appreciate you providing us some of your time today, and we're going to do our best to allow you to get the most value out of you can. My name's Glenn Collins, and I will be one of your hosts today, along with a couple of subject matter experts who not only know the products we're going to talk about in terms of virtual reality, but they both spend some time in the classroom, which makes them much more excited about the product and how it can engage students and how we're going to change the way we teach kids than even I am, and I thought I was really excited about it. So I look forward to them. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves as we get to that part of the presentation that they'll spend some time. My role here with CDI is that I'm an executive at CDI, and my role is really to make sure that we're bringing cost-effective, relevant solutions to our education customers. So I have a great job. I get to play with technology. I get to spend a lot of time in the field with folks like many of you that are listening today to talk about the challenges and exciting parts about how we engage students differently and how we change the way we're teaching them, how we use technology in those methodologies. So I get to listen to all of that, hear all of that, see what you're doing, and then I get to spend the other half of my life with people like Google and the people that are our partner, Google education partners that are on the phone with us today, Microsoft, Intel, and a whole bunch of other manufacturers, hopefully pulling content, product, and presentations together that allow us to bring solutions to the education market that do allow us to change the way we engage students, and at the end of the day, improve learning outcomes. So I got a fun job, and I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful for all I learned from not only the experts that are on the phone with us today, but from educators like the majority of the people that are on the phone today. So before I begin and we get into the meat and potatoes, I just wanted a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, the session will be recorded, and everyone who has signed up or is online with us will get a link to the recorded session in the next 24 to 48 hours. Throughout today, you do have the ability to ask questions. There's a couple of ways you can communicate with us. The most effective is using the Q&A function in your Zoom console. You can chat with us, but it's easier for us to respond to you in the Q&A sponsorship. So without any further ado, I'll jump in. Any questions we can't answer today, for whatever reason, somebody comes up with a question that stumps us, we'll make sure we get back to you within the next 24 hours. So both Kim and Caitlin are going to do the majority of the presentation today. Again, as I said, they're not only knowledge experts in what's available in VR today in the marketplace, and specifically when it relates to the Google expeditions, but they've also spent time in the classroom. So I believe they can bring a perspective to this that us non-educators can't do. So I look forward to hearing from them shortly. But before I do, I thought for those of you who don't know, I would spend a moment and talk about CDI. I promise I won't be long, but I think it's important to understand that we are a technology solutions company that focuses in the education space, but we realize that the technology is just a tool, and that our real mission is to enable educators to really improve learning outcomes. And we try to do that as cost effectively as we can. So things we bring to the marketplace are really designed to not only to provide the tools to allow you to do that, but to give you all of the surrounding and supporting materials to get the most out of that technology investment you make, while at the same time trying to be very cost conscious, because we know that nobody we've met in education has too much money. So we do our best to bring you quality products at the great price with all the support that allow you to change the way you utilize that technology in education, and of course change the learning outcomes. So that's my commercial about CDI. I just thought I would take a moment to talk about that. Virtual reality in the classroom. We're really excited about being able to offer our customers both the ability to buy and to rent, or rent for a short period of time, these cost-effective virtual reality kits that were specifically designed for education. And we'll get into more of the details on those kits shortly. I think over the past few years, virtual reality technologies have made a quantum leap in terms of industry support, reduced costs, ease of use, and most importantly, the availability of content. So I think, although we're probably at the front edge of this technology moving into the marketplace, it is now cost effective, it is now affordable, and there is enough content that you can use this in a wide range of ways to educate your students. So today, about 5% or less of teachers actually use VR in the classroom, but when we've done surveys and seen surveys, it looks like about 60 to 70% are keen on using that technology in the classroom experience. The majority of teachers have told us that VR will improve their efficiencies in learning by providing a better collaboration, more engaged and motivated students, and a better ability to explain certain concepts in subjects like science, for example. So there's no real hard numbers as of yet because it's relatively new, but it's expected that about 15 million students will have access and utilize virtual reality in learning by the year 2025. So it's obviously going to be something that we see predominantly in the classrooms. So the way I perceive this happening over the next, evolving, if you will, over the next little while, is what we're starting to see is we've seen, I guess, stage one or step one of the virtual reality in the classroom really being utilized for virtual field trips. And again, I'll share with you some other aspects of where it's being utilized, but step one is almost being able to take students to otherwise impossible locations. And for those of you who have utilized or seen Google Expeditions, I've been on most of their tours, staff here, we've all been through it, and people who have actually been to some of the places that they have seen in Google Expeditions talk about that sometimes the Google Expeditions is actually a better way to see and learn about the subject matter that they've actually visited. So I think you'll see that experience. We're going to talk to that, and Kim and Caitlin will talk to that in detail. But I think what I see is the utilization of virtual reality. This is kind of step one, if you will. Then you start to look at other places that it's being utilized. Still, some of that is outside of the scope of what we'll talk about today, just in terms of price and content availability. But places, many universities, Johns Hopkins, for example, uses a virtual reality, 3D virtual reality to teach people how to do operations today so they can practice and do things that they might otherwise not be able to do or used to do on cadavers, but now they can do and redo and learn and record and go back. So I think all of that will come downscale, and we'll see more of that in education. But as I said, the way I see it today is really step one is in the field trips, if you will, the virtual field trips. So I'll share this with you, and really there's a lot of content on this slide that I won't read it all, but basically what I think you are going to see is, and these are all tools and places where you can create content, add content, utilize some of their content in a virtual environment, and it allows you to do that. Again, when you get the slide, you'll see that there's a top 20 virtual reality apps that are changing education. A link as well you can go to and look at those. So that's really it for me. And what I'd like to do now is turn this over to, I guess, Caitlin? Caitlin, you want me to give you?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Are you on the phone? You're on the phone, right?
Yes, I am.
All right, I'm gonna make you the host.
All righty. Let me know when you can see the screen.
Yeah, it's only 2 o'clock.
We can see the screen.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Glenn, for that introduction, and thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join today. As Glenn mentioned, my name is Caitlin Hoddes, and I'm in business development for Google for Education, and my colleague Kim Dillard is the same, and we're both former educators and an extension of CDI's Google team. So we're here to tell you more specifically about a virtual reality solution that you can purchase directly from CDI, but also kind of extending onto what Glenn said, why it's important and why it's something that your school and school district should look into. And so first and foremost, what is STEM and STEAM, right? It's apparent that most of you on this call are probably aware that that stands for science, technology, engineering, math, add the A, arts. But this curriculum is being heavily implemented around the United States and beyond. And there are, in fact, millions of dollars being allocated from the United States government to fund solutions like virtual reality in school. We just want to help you be aware of those buckets of funds that you may have access to help purchase solutions like virtual reality. So just keep that in the back of your mind. But as we continue on today, as Glenn mentioned with his 2025 year mark as far as implementing virtual reality heavily into schools, there is a Horizon report that goes over the top trends in education. And so we're currently in, and I apologize, but if anyone else is on this call who's not on mute, if you could please mute yourself, that would be great. Thank you. The K-12 Horizon report actually goes over the top trends in education. So we see that 2 to 3 years out, virtual reality and robotics becoming heavily implemented in most schools in the United States. We're kind of in that makerspace learning and that digital learning age, and even 4 to 5 years from now, queuing into artificial intelligence and wearable technology. So how do you, as teachers, maybe curriculum specialists, or even technology purchasers at your districts, take all the different technology that's coming your way and deploy it properly in your school districts to make it meaningful? There are a few ways that we recommend to deploy STEM and STEAM solutions specific to virtual reality, but what we find the most effective from what we see on the day-to-day basis are these bullet points here. So whether you have an elective course or maybe an after-school club or a STEM club, it's important that you're introducing this newer technology to schools and to these students. In fact, there are over 65% of students globally are actually going to be in jobs that don't exist yet, using technologies that haven't been invented yet to solve problems that we don't even know are problems yet. So giving them the tools now is really a chance for them to take what they're learning and apply it in different ways. So all of these bullet points here are just some ideas, but we definitely will take any feedback, or if you've done anything in your school districts that have been beneficial, we'd love to hear about them. I really quickly want to pass it over to Kim just to talk about some other VR use cases that may be beneficial to you guys at your school district.
Thanks, Caitlin. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. A couple of the different ways that we have seen our schools use this technology are pretty exciting when you start thinking about ways to explore, as Glenn said, places that you can't normally take a classroom. But one place that we found a lot of our high schools are using our kit for are high school senior nights. Usually it's the counselors at the school. They will set up a high school senior night for students that are planning on going to a university, and they will they will invite the parents and the students. They will have them come in. The parents usually go to a financial aid session to learn all about the wonderful world of FAFSA, and then they send the seniors over to a different area with a lot of these virtual reality kits, and they can actually explore college campuses that they're interested in attending. That way, if you have a student in Florida that's looking at a school in Connecticut or California or Arizona, they're not having to spend tremendous amounts of money flying to these different campuses to look at them, but they could possibly explore at first, at least, and narrow them down a little bit with virtual field trips. There are probably 50 to 60 different universities that have these available through Google Expeditions already. And again, all of this is free to the schools through Google Expeditions. Other ways that we've seen some schools get very involved, and this is more of a community event, is they have let their beta clubs or national honor societies take these kits out to a retirement home and actually take some of the senior citizens on field trips. And think of what a great thing this would be for younger students to get their service hours for their beta club and their national honor society. Jets serve, a great way for seniors to be able to travel again that can't do that anymore. And then we have seen other uses, such as public libraries and child care facilities, use this kit as well. If any of you are at a daycare situation or a private kindergarten, these are also great solutions for this kit.
Thanks, Kim. And getting back to the app itself, Google Expeditions is the free app that Kim mentioned, which is what you will be using in your classrooms to facilitate that experience.
Okay,
so it's a free
can I jump
Chrome.
in for 1 sec? I'm sorry to interrupt. We're getting a lot of background noise, and I think, if I'm guessing correct, it's coming from Kim's. Kim, are you in some place where there's background noise?
Yeah, there are some people around me, yes.
So I can't mute you without muting Caitlin as well. So if you can mute yourself
Okay.
while Caitlin's talking, that might reduce it. That's all. Thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Thanks, Glenn, and thanks, Kim. So Google Expeditions is actually a free Chrome web app that you can download on any device. And this is where, as a teacher, you can download and pick specific field trips to take your students on. And as Glenn mentioned earlier, these are places that you wouldn't normally be able to take your students on a school bus, right? So think the ocean, the solar system, the Great Wall of China, several places that will bring your lesson plans and curriculum standards to life. So we just quickly wanted to show you what that kind of looks like. And we're going to show a brief video. Glenn, did we set up the video for this webinar? Should this work?
No idea. I didn't. I couldn't get the feature. Try it. Let's see.
That's okay.
Try it. See if it works.
I'm not sure if the volume is
That's
there.
the problem. You may have to stick your mic by
So
your
what we'll
speakers.
do, everyone, that's okay. What we'll do is we will go ahead and pass out, when we pass out the slide deck and the recording, this video will be there. But essentially, it's showing you how this one child in Nebraska, who is normally used to plains, right, flat land, has really wants to be a designer of skyscrapers, and how in his class they were able to go to one of the tallest buildings in the world, and how it inspired it, and how they've built designs. And it's really inspiring to see how exciting these kids, who don't normally get to see skyscrapers like the one you're seeing on the screen, get to do. And so it's a really phenomenal experience when you see the engagement and learning at this level. And so when in a classroom, as you saw them all, they were actually using a cardboard viewer where a device was inserted in that had the application itself. So we'll talk a little bit more about the hardware piece in a little bit, but I just want to show you about Google Expeditions, the classroom. So ultimately, a teacher would have a Chromebook or a tablet to facilitate and be the guide. So on their device, they'll have Google Expeditions, and they will click to be that guide. Every student on their devices will follow that teacher and automatically be synced to that teacher in the field trip that she chooses. So as I mentioned before, all of the leads of these explorers of these expeditions can pick a variety of expeditions. And I think now there's actually closer to 800 that you can choose from, and Google's continuing to grow and expand the expeditions. But they actually film them themselves with 360-degree panoramas. It's pretty amazing. And so you can search by genre, arts and culture, landscapes, or even subject level, subject matter, science, etc. Once you've chosen which you want to go to, you can then launch that, and every student will be able to see where you're taking them. Now, if this is in more of a makerspace type area or a library where you may have a set few kits for some kids to play around in, there is an option for them to embark on their own that you'll see on the right side, or explore on your own, where they'll be able to pick different expeditions to see themselves. But ultimately, on the teacher tablet version or Chromebook, whatever you choose for this example, we'll do the Saunders Reef, part of the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. The teacher will get specific guidance and talking points on that specific location. So you'll see there is a circle around the algae. There's specific places in the Great Barrier Reef that the teacher will take them and talk to them about. The first one is algae. The second one is coral. And it will actually create a circle so that the students know exactly where that teacher is talking about. And to take that a step further, you will know the students are engaged by watching the smiley faces on your teacher tablet. So on that tablet, I will see my class represented as smiley faces. So in this specific expedition, we are roaming the tundra and we are talking about polar bears. We will see that most all of the students are in that general region, so I know everyone's on task. If there were a smiley face off on the completely opposite side of the polar bear, I would know that I would need to look up and re-engage a student back. But it gives you an idea of where most of your students will be during the lesson. If I wanted to pause the expedition real quick and gather attention outside of the viewer, this is the screen that the student will see. It will say pause by teacher. They can look up and we can focus on whatever speaking point that I want to discuss. But the best part about Google Expeditions is implementing it in the proper way. And so I know when I used to teach, it was very overwhelming. There were so many ideas and so many great technologies to use. I would know how to use a tool, but I didn't know how to implement it properly in my curriculum. And so on top of professional development, which we will talk about a little bit later, there's a wonderful website called tes.com where you can actually search various lesson plans. You make a free login and you can search by subject or grade level that will help you incorporate these virtual reality expeditions in the classroom. So you'll see here that this one is on the human and physical geography of volcanoes. And from here, I'm going to pass it over to Kim.
Don't forget to unmute yourself, Kim. Kim?
All right, well, while Kim is getting her unmuting herself, I'll continue. This is just a second sample lesson plan that you could search. This one's for a little bit older kids for physics, literacy, and numeracy. So there's lots of categories that you can choose. So we definitely recommend you taking a look at that website. And so when it comes to, what else is incorporated in an expeditions kit aside from that free application, this is where we start to talk about what hardware, what devices are needed. And so CDI has a Google-created device called the Magellan that was purpose-driven, created from Google to run Google Expeditions and other Android applications. It's actually running Android 7.0. And the call feature has taken completely out of this. You can see it looks like a phone, right? We like to joke and say it's kind of like an Android iPod Touch, right? You are utilizing it for educational apps, but the kids are not able to call out. It's specific to the educational apps, and it's very cost effective. There's a lot of VR options out there, and for the K-12 space, we understand that your budgets are tight, and we want to make sure you can get as much technology as you can available to your students and teachers as possible. And this is a great way to do so. And so this is the student device that will come white gloved with Google Expeditions already on it. And the other pieces of this kit will include the case. So you're going to have all the student devices with the case, and you're actually going to have Mattel Deluxe Viewmasters. That's a name you may have not heard in a while. They're coming back. Google approved specific viewers to utilize this experience from. And we've chosen the Mattel Deluxe Viewmaster because it's very easy to clean, and it allows customization for kids who have glasses or don't have glasses. So it's really awesome. And so with the viewers, with the Magellan device, with the teacher, the Asus ZenPad teacher tablet, and the router, the charging station in the case, that kind of represents our full kit that we have pre-configured and ready to go. So that being said, these are kind of the options. We have a 10 device kit, a 20 device kit, and a 30 device kit. All of this is great to pilot at first. You may want to start with the 10 device kit that is able for different classrooms to check out, and then continue to deploy more devices later on. We hope to have, by the end of the year, we are working with Bretford for a virtual reality cart. So in place of the custom rolling case, you may want to purchase a cart instead for more easier accessibility and movement. And so all of this can be quoted from your CDI sales rep. Keep in mind there are some varying options that would include the router or not have the router, include the case, not have the case. We want to make sure we're customizing it for the needs of your school and your school district. Okay. In addition to TES.com, we do have a variety of resources for you to refer to. So there's also a lot of common facts and frequently asked questions and common facts that we hear about when it comes to the setup and actual use of a Google Expeditions virtual reality kit. So when we send out the recording, we will have a link there so you can read all of that, as well as a one-pager that kind of summarizes everything in the kit. Kim, were you able to unmute yourself?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. Is there anything else? We can hear you. Is there anything else that you wanted to add along to this?
The only thing that I would add is if you do purchase a 10-pack and then want to add your additional devices for 15 or 20 later on, you would need to be able to sync those additional components to the router yourselves, because in our white glove procedure, a lot of that is done up front and before it is sent out, so that it's a seamless experience when you receive the kit. If you start adding on, then you would need someone to be able to help you with the syncing of the router just on the new devices that you ordered. Other than that, you're going to have a very easy time putting the kit to use in the classroom.
Perfect. Thanks, Kim. So all in all, before we pitch it over to Glenn to get in more specifics on pricing, CDI is doing their research and really making sure that they're keeping all of you up to date on the hot technology trends. And virtual reality is one of them. There is funding available through grants, in E-rate, etc. And we have teams that can help you find what's available. And so don't automatically think, oh, virtual reality, I don't have the funds for that. These are the tools that your kids are going to need to be successful. It's one thing to talk about virtual reality and another thing to have a kid really experience it and get excited about what they're learning. And so from here, we will pitch it over to Glenn to talk about the offerings that CDI has.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it very much. There's a few questions I'm going to answer. And Caitlin, if I misspeak on the answers, please feel free to jump in and correct me. So the first question is, do you need the router, or can we use our own Wi-Fi? The way the kit is designed, it's to be a self-contained network. So the idea is that you shouldn't have to use your Wi-Fi. You don't really want to have another 10 devices added to your internal Wi-Fi. And it becomes a peer-to-peer network within the classroom. So the teacher would utilize the Wi-Fi in the school to download the expedition that they wanted to share with the students. But from that point on, the way the kit is designed, the experience becomes self-contained. So you don't have to worry about ports and security and making sure that everybody's synced to the right wireless network. This all is self-contained, and it comes that way, as both Caitlin and Kim talked about, in terms of white gloves, synced and ready to go. So Don, I hope that answers your question. And then the next question was really the same, was, is that router specific to these devices, or can we use an access point? And again, the concept here in the kit is to avoid using your own network or your own network environment to have to utilize for these things. How do I request a quote? Well, I'll send you some pricing, but I can share with that in a moment. And then Kim, I think, answered the question about add-ons. Is there a demo option available? I'm going to talk to that in a second. And our
And I will say, too,
sorry, go ahead.
just to add on real quick, Glenn, as far as purchasing, I know Kim talked about the add-ons. I will say, if you already have, a specific router or a tablet that you may be wanting to use, you can purchase the Magellan student devices as a standalone. However, the Mattel viewers are part of the kit only. So just keep that in mind.
Yep.
And I don't know if you're going to touch on the professional development that is available or not. Glenn, are you going to talk about that at all?
Actually, you guys can jump in on that because I don't have it as part of my presentation. So
okay.
Jump in.
CDI does have available a full day of professional development, and it's basically up for 20 teachers on site at your school, where they can actually take you through using the kit, how to incorporate it in your lesson plans, how to meet all the standards that you're needing to teach, and tell you a little bit more about the different expeditions. But all that is available through CDI and can be scheduled through them.
Okay, so before I get back into any of the other stuff, I'm just going to try to answer the question. So is there a demo option? We'll talk about, are students restricted to Google Expedition on the device, or can they access the internet as well on the Magellan device?
They can access the internet. Yep, it is running Android 7.0. So in addition to Google Expeditions, you can also utilize G Suite and download any other applications from the Google Play Store.
Okay. But what are the restrictions so that they can't use? Obviously, there's no cellular. So they can't make calls, they can't do some other things they might be able to do on a phone.
Right, they won't be able to text message, they won't be able to call, because we've taken out the phone capabilities of this device to kind of, eliminate all of those distractions.
So then the next question kind of relates to that, and that was, will the Magellan ever need to be updated or replaced? BC is out. I guess they're talking about the wireless, that BC is out of date. Oh, maybe it's because it becomes out of date.
No.
So
it will have the updates sent to it. So it will always be updating just like a normal Android device would.
Assuming that it is connected to the internet at some point. So they can be updated, but it would be a process that would have to happen at the school, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's actually good not to have all those updates coming in. That was one of the benefits of the Magellan as well. If you're using a cell phone for this purpose, then obviously you're going to have to update it all the time, and that does erase some of the syncing capabilities that has been performed during those white glove procedures. So actually not having those updates constantly popping up on the student device is very helpful.
So I got a bunch of other questions. One is from Robbie, what are the Canadian prices? Robbie, we can do the conversion and send you that information. So I'll give out my email at the end of this. If there's a specific pricing you want, then we'll respond to you right away. Do these devices need internet connectivity, or are they pre-downloaded during the white glove? How do you get updated? So go ahead.
Expeditions is preloaded
Right.
in the white glove procedure, and everything is synced to that router in our white glove procedures as well.
Yeah, I think the technology you need to understand is that the expedition, the actual field trip, doesn't reside on the Magellan. It resides on the teacher who shares it then with those Magellans. So it streams to the Magellans using that router in the classroom. So things like, Christine asked the question about storage on the Magellans. What is a storage? I'm not sure it matters, but do you guys want to share?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Since you're downloading with the teacher tablet from Expeditions, once you've done that, you log off of your Google account and network, and it's housed right there on the teacher tablet. So there's really no, real storage needed on the student devices at all, other than the storage, if you've added other apps and things like that. But there's plenty of room on there for numerous apps to be used with the Magellan, as well as all the expeditions are just followed by those students from the teacher device. It all is synced through that router, like you say, with a peer-to-peer network within the classroom.
So the next there's a question about security, which is, so the device will operate outside of the content filter of the school. So in other words, because it's just sharing inside the classroom, if they do connect, they would not be able to connect to the internet outside of the wireless access point in the classroom if they could. And in that case, I'm guessing it's filtered.
Yes, and that's one reason we suggest using the router in the kit, because a lot of times if a school has tried to use their own wireless access points in each classroom, number one, you're creating a lot of traffic on your network that you don't need. Number two, a lot of times those students might have an issue connecting to the device or the network because of a firewall or a filter that's in place. And that teacher's not going to know that until they start trying to download or follow her content, and therefore it can create problems and headaches later. If you have that router and everybody's just functioning all synced through that router as a peer-to-peer network, you number one, you're not going to have the issues of them going out on the internet, and number two, she controls everything that they're seeing.
Which is the ideal scenario for using this technology. If you're using it for just virtual reality, then it's all self-contained and controlled by the teacher. So there is a question that asks about logins for the students. And the question is there any type of login required on the Magellan? We don't want to have to create any type of accounts for the students.
And they don't have to have it, because they basically will turn the Magellan on. They will go to expeditions. It will immediately see the teacher device because everything's synced through that router. And they will hit follow because the teacher has chosen to be the leader. And at that point, their device separates into two screens. You put it in the viewer and they're ready to go on the field trip. So there's no logins required. There's no having to get into individual Google accounts or anything like that. It's all done through the routing, with the router.
Perfect. And then there was a question about the size of the storage on the actual teacher's device.
And I want to say it's either 2 gig or 4 gig. I would have to check on that, but there's plenty of room to download numerous expeditions onto that tablet.
Okay, so I'm not sure because I think it's probably either 1632 or 64 gigs, but we'll get that information and send it out with the link to the recording. Can you guys flip to the next slide for me?
Yep. And while I'm flipping to the next slide, I see a question about the resource for finding out which grants are maybe E-Rate. Yeah. And so we'll include that with our recording and our follow-up email. But essentially, there's specific grants on STEM and STEAM. So anything can be pretty vague, even some dialing down specific to virtual reality. So it just goes on to the specific statistics of your school. But we do have a team that can help write grants with you to make your likelihood higher of getting that grant approved. So we'll definitely include that information in our follow-up for you.
Excellent, thank you. And then the other thing people ask about demos. The challenge is it's very expensive to send the demos out. They're very expensive to maintain. In terms of a demo pool, we do have some demos available, but even now you're looking at end of December, early January before you might be able to get one. So there's a couple of options. First, there is the ability to buy a demo kit, if you will, which consists of 3 units. Maybe Kim or Caitlin, you could describe what's all in the 3-unit kit, but it costs about just over $1,000 US.
And the demo kit is really just that. It's made for a district to try it out if they want to. It does include a teacher tablet. It includes the router, and it includes 3 Magellans and 3 viewers. We did not include the quick chargers or the rolling cases for the demo unit, just because we were trying to keep the cost down as much as possible.
So there's that option. And then CDI we have a technology rental company known as Vernon that we own and operate. So we have the ability to rent these kits either monthly, a single month, 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months. And the rental rates are showing depending on which kit you get in front of you. So, we saw this as a good option for somebody who wants to try it out. I think Caitlin described earlier that, we envision schools having a number of these kits in the schools to be shared amongst, either from the library or the media center as a beginning point. So this might be a good way to try that. If you think about having a 20-pack available as a rental for 1 month, and you use that actually, 15 of the 20 available days, that's 15 field trips for less than $1,000, which would be a lot less than, and a better education in terms of educational experience than perhaps going to the site, and a lot less in terms of the cost of doing that. So anybody that rents for 3 months or more, 60% of the rental that you pay over that period of time can also go toward the purchase of the kits if you decide to keep them. So we tried to make this as easy as possible. So this may be a way to get a demo in your hands as easy as possible. And one more question here. We tried using. So there's a couple of people who have tried some other with using other components here. And there was a question about Google Management. Are you able to use Google Management to manage the devices? And again, I'll let Kim or Caitlin talk to this, but I'm not sure you need to, given that it's a contained kit and you kind of want to maintain it that way.
Correct. We do not have a management license for this. It's an Android device, so the Chrome management license would not work for it. But as Kim mentioned, the teacher will have control within the app. So, if you do want to use this device for other educational apps, you'll just have to do your own security, if you will, for that. So, but really, from all the use cases we've seen implemented on the sales that we've had, we haven't had any problems so far.
Good. And I think that appears to be the end of the questions. So as I said a couple occasions, we will send you out the slide deck. We will send you out the recording, so you'll have all of the links available to you as you go through that. You'll have the video that we couldn't play in our session here today because we couldn't get audio to work, that you'll be able to see as part of the slide presentation when you look at it. So if there is no more questions, I certainly appreciate everyone's time. I hope you found the session informative and interesting, and we truly appreciate the time you've given us today. So on behalf of my partners in Google Education and CDI, thank you very much for your time. By the way, my email address is gcollins, that's C-O-L-L-I-N-S, at Edugear, that's EDUGEAR.com. Please feel free to send me any more questions. If you're looking for quotes, etc., we'll be able to send you all that as well, and I'll be able to connect you with your salesperson. And for the individual, Robbie, that was looking for Canadian prices, I'll be happy to send those out to you as well. So again, on behalf of my partners in Google Education and CDI, very much appreciate your time today. Thank you, and have a great day.